and welcome back to my knitting journey. I am Vanessa and this is a podcast where I talk about all of the knitting related things in my life. I am starting with my finished objects, so all of the things I've recently finished, and then I'll show you what I'm currently working on. Usually I finish off with my newest acquisitions, so new yarn or yarny things that I have bought, but as I am on a yarn buying ban for this year, I don't have anything to show today. But before I show you my finished objects, I want to show you what I'm wearing today. This is my burrow cardigan, the first one I made. It is a pattern by Fable Knitwear. It's a crop style cardigan that's more meant to be worn as a sweater than as a jacket, in my opinion, or on top of dresses. Our visitor is here. Say hi to Luna. And I knit this in woolly knit British wool, held double in the color cinnamon brown. I think that color was quite popular 2 years ago when I knit this, and it seemed like everybody was knitting with this color, and I still really enjoy it. A good nice rusty brown, and the buttons I have on it, if you can see them, are some vintage check glass buttons that I got on Etsy, and they have little birds on them. I have my first finished object right here. It's a bit wrinkled because I had it laying in the washing basket after I blocked it, and now I managed to wrinkle it. Perfect. It's the Friday sweater baby by Petite Knit, and it's for my little niece. I knit the 2 to 4 month old, and I didn't make a gauge swatch because I thought if it's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, I don't mind, because she will still be able to wear it, just at a different time. And looking at this and remembering my now 3-week-old niece compared to my 1-year-old nephew, I feel like this would... Is this more the size of a 1-year-old than a 2-month-old? I don't know. Nevertheless, it's big enough for her to wear it at some point. And I really like how this turned out, if you ignore the wrinkles. I use this white yarn as a base, that is Lang Yarn's 200 Merino Baby. And for the stripes, I changed between this yarn that is just a miscellaneous sock yarn from my stash. I believe it should be Rico design, but I'm not 100% sure because I do not own the tag anymore. And for the purple stripes, I used this yarn, and this is Drops Baby Merino in the color 14. The white one is a Lang yarn, so I have to read the color because they are endlessly long. It's 71.0302, and it's just a slightly off-white. And yeah, I really enjoy how this turned out. Honestly, I would wear this myself in these colors. Maybe I will make one for myself, but I do not own the yarn yet, so not this year. Yeah, and I'm making this podcast just in time because we are seeing our little niece and of course her parents tomorrow evening, so this will go to her. Oh, and all of the yarns I used are superwash, so they can just throw it in a washing machine and not bother about hand washing. They just have to remember not to put it in the dryer, but I think that won't be a problem with them. Second finished object, this one you've also seen before. It's my framework bralette by Jessie Maid. This is knit in Fable Knitwear Athena in the colorway Polka. And for the straps, I used some scraps I had laying around because I ran out of the red yarn. That's also why I made some modifications to the pattern. Usually the front and back would be the same, so in the back you would also have the two cups and no crisscrossed straps, but the cups would be connected just with a strap over the shoulder. And yeah, this is too small. I didn't make a gauge swatch for this again. I just knit it because I thought it's a quick knit, and if it's not fine, I'll just rip it out again. And I think that's what I will have to do. I have not blocked it yet, so maybe if I do block it, it will grow a bit and fit me, but the way it is right now, it won't fit. It's a bit too tight. Oh, and did I say the pattern is by Jessie Made Designs? I still like how this came out, and maybe if I aggressively block it, I'll get it to fit. So I'll keep you updated on that. Yes, and that's already all of the finished objects I have to show today. But I do have a couple of new projects on my needles. But first off, I'm going to show you something you've seen before, and that's my Santa baby sweater that I started in December. This is a pattern by Filcolana that I have been seeing a lot around Christmas time, where people were embroidering the trees with some beads to make them look like trees with ornaments. So yeah, this is a sweater with a colorwork yoke that has 2 rows of pine trees that I plan to decorate with beads later on. And right now I have just finished the first row of trees, and you can already see where I'm starting. Or can you see it? Yeah, where I'm starting the second row of trees. But this is on quite a slow burner. My goal is to finish this until July probably, so I can give myself a lot of time to embroider the beads on it. But for now I'm not stressing about this. The yarn I'm using is Knitting for Olive No Waste Wool. The grayish beige one is the colorway Powder, and the green one is, I think, dark green, but I'm going to put it like on the screen because I'm really not sure. And later on I'm going to add in a third color, a dark red one. That's also Knitting for Olive, but they're merino base and not their no waste wool base. And that's in the color Claret. And even if I'm going a bit slower on this, I'm really enjoying knitting it. Once I pick it up, I can not put it down, and I keep working on it for the rest of my knitting time. And I want to keep knitting another row and another row and another row because I love seeing these trees come together. Maybe a bit more about the construction. Right now this looks a bit weird, but later on I'll be picking up around this edge for the neckline. And once the color work is done, I will be splitting for sleeves, and all of the sweater is knit in the round. My second project is something that I have shown in my 10 things I want to knit from my stash video last week, and I already made quite a dent in it. This was also something I wasn't able to put down. It's the Sophie Scarf by Petite Knit. So a bit of a Petite Knit heavy episode today, but I did make quite a few alterations. So Petite Knit has 2 patterns. One is called a scarf, and it's more of like a neckerchief. So a smaller scarf that you just knot around your neck, and the other one is called a shawl, and that's a longer scarf. I don't know why she called that a shawl, because you can't really put it around your shoulders or anything. It's really more of a elongated scarf. And I own the scarf pattern, so the smaller one, and I'm using the construction of that for this scarf. That's obviously going to be a lot longer, so I'm using the increase rate and just the pattern itself to knit this, but I am using a different gauge yarn. I'm using 6mm needles, so I think the pattern calls for 3 or 4mm needles, and I'm using a lot bigger needles because my yarn is also a lot bigger. I had one skein of this Noro Kanzashi yarn in the color 13, and I wanted to find a project where I could use up the whole skein ball without wasting any of it, and the pattern should also show the color changing that's happening in this yarn. So I opted to make like this scarf, and I was doing the increases, and originally my plan was to just increase until I'm halfway through the ball and then start decreasing again, because the scarf is constructed in a way where you increase until one point and then you decrease, so it's a very elongated triangle. Yeah, so that's what I started off doing, and then at one point I thought that I'm actually wide enough for it to comfortably cover my neck. So I decided, instead of the scarf getting wider and wider with increasing, I would just knit it straight until the point where I am halfway through the ball. No, not that way around. That was what I wanted to do. So when I was wide enough, I decided to weigh how much I have used, and I used 40 grams for the increases, and then I started knitting straight, so without any increases or decreases, and I'm going to keep doing that until I have 40 grams left, and then I'm doing the decreases. It will still taper on both ends. It's hard to show this. Yeah, so it will still taper on the second end into like the same direction. I'm making sure I'm decreasing on the same side I increased, and this gives me as long of a scarf as possible. Yeah, and for how long it's approximately going to be, this is about the halfway point. This black grayish color is the same that I started with, and looking into the ball I can see that I'm also ending with that exact same spot in the color shift. So this is half of the scarf, and it's just going to be double that. And I am planning to use this with a new coat I got this winter that's the same color as this camel color. The thing I tend to do is I don't just have a pile with scarves and gloves and accessories and a rack with my coats. I always have like a designated set of scarf and gloves for each coat that I store inside of that coat, so I always only have to grab it and go and don't have to think about what I'm wearing with it. I'm not much of a hat person. My hair just looks terrible after wearing a hat, so it's mostly scarves and gloves for me. And I do not yet have gloves for this coat, and looking at this camel next to the blue isn't usually my first color choice, but I quite like that combination. So maybe when I'm done knitting this, I will take this to the store and see if I can find some gloves in a similar tone of blue to put with this scarf. And I'm pretty sure this will be done for the next podcast. The trashmans are coming. And I hope they don't see me. They are making a lot of noise. I'll wait a second until they have passed. I'm sorry if you can sometimes hear some street noises during my videos. I try to stop talking when there's a lot of noise outside, because I do live on quite a busy street. But sometimes I don't notice it, so I keep talking. Yeah. So I apologize for that. As I was saying, this should be finished very soon. This knits up very quickly, and I'm excited to be able to wear this because the yarn is super soft. Oh, I can maybe tell you what it's made of. It's made of 30% mohair, 30% silk, 23% wool, 14% viscose, and 3% polyamide. So this should also keep really warm. But all of these projects have been on hold during the last couple of days because I cast on something new and I cannot put it down. I also talked about this in my 10 things I want to knit from my stash video, and I showed the yarn in my last podcast episode. And yeah, this is the Salty Day sweater. Now, this does look a bit weird because it has quite an interesting construction. It's the Salty Day sweater by Veronica Lindberg, or Kutewa Kika, and you start by casting on the back neck and increase along these sides where you later pick up for the shoulders and front sides, and then you start working these patterns. It's knit in like patterned stripes. They are very engaging and a lot of fun to knit because you're constantly doing something different. First off, we're starting with the back and then picking up for the sides, and later on joining in the round. You feel like you're constantly progressing, and there are smaller sections that knit up quite quickly, and this is going to be the softest sweater ever. Now, with not having blocked it yet, it isn't as soft, but I did make a swatch for this. Oh, it's on the floor. And after washing it, it's even softer. And I am quite proud with my yarn experimentation lately, because first up I made that Fulcolana Santa Baby sweater where I used completely different yarn than intended in the pattern, and I made a gauge swatch and I was spot on with my gauge, so my expectations and my calculations for my yarn gauge were correct. And then for this one I am using quite a interesting combination of yarns. I'm using this Woolly Knit British wool in, what is it, a fingering weight, or more of a, I would say a light fingering. It's the colorway Erin Nep, and it has these black 3D bits in it. I really like this. And I'm holding it together with one strand of Nordic Sky Ulu, that's a mohair silk yarn. It's 72% mohair and 28% mulberry silk in the color 2. And then I'm holding it with another yarn, that's this off-white cashmere yarn in a lace weight from Lella Bella, and this is the color 5528. Here's the tag. So it's quite an interesting combination of yarns, and the pattern calls for approximately a DK weight, and I made a gauge swatch for this, and again I'm spot on with my gauge and I'm really proud about it. Especially after knitting that framework bralette thing where I'm completely off gauge. And from now on, I'm trying to make gauge swatches for everything that I make, especially for bigger projects, because it's a huge waste of yarn and time if the thing doesn't fit in the end. And yeah, I know these aren't the biggest gauge swatches, but I'm mostly not concerned about the length, as only about the width, as the length for most patterns, or at least for this pattern, is adjustable. And with the yarn, even though I'm spot on with gauge, I maybe have a little bit less than I should have in terms of quantity. But this sweater is made to be very oversized, and there are some things that I'm going to tweak. The pattern says to, after you knit this front, you join the back and front in the round, and then you knit the body, and afterwards you knit the sleeve, and at the very end you knit the neck band. What I am instead going to do is, after joining in the round, I'm going to knit the neck band first, because I do need enough yarn for that. Then the sleeves in the pattern are made to be very long, so longer than needed. And I do not like it when my sweaters keep pulling up over my hands. I prefer them to end at the wrist. So I'm going to shorten them a bit and not knit them as long as the pattern indicates. Also, the pattern, the body is very long in where it would end on me on my hips, and I don't really like that look on me because it makes me look quite square. I prefer sweaters to end a bit above my hips, so my waist is still a bit accentuated. I still want this to have like a loose fit, but I'm going to make the arms and body shorter anyway, so I'm expecting to still have enough yarn because I only have a little bit less than I should have. And maybe in the next episode I'll tell you that I don't have enough yarn and I have to order some more to be able to finish this. I hope not. I'm having so much fun knitting this that I'm already roaming through my stash and looking if I have some more yarn that I could make this with. So there maybe will be a second version of this in the future. Now we're at the end already. I do not have any new yarn to show you, as I already said, because I did keep to my yarn buying ban. But there are a couple of admin things that I want to talk about. First off, there will not be a video next week because I will be on a vacation in Austria, and I'm excited about that. I didn't want to put any pressure on me to post something when I'm away. And the second thing is that there won't be a podcast episode in February because I plan on filming a Finish It February video, so it will just be a bit too much of the projects I'm working on if I also do a podcast episode. Maybe for those people that aren't interested in my other videos, I will do like a quick recap of what I knit in February during the March episode, but it will just be like a quick show and tell and not an in-depth explanation of what I made. So yeah, February will be for finishing some UFOs that have been waiting to be finished for a very long time. And of course, all of these projects will also be seen in my update on my stash busting that will come out in March, as I'm doing it every other month. And yeah, the next video after my break will be a pretty interesting one where I try something completely new that I have never done before. It's also yarn related, but it's something new to me, so you can stay tuned for that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode, and I will see you very soon. I wish you some happy knitting and crafting, and I will see you next time. Bye!